Zimbabwe, welcome to Reclaiming Our Future, the podcast where every conversation stokes the power that lies deep within us. I'm David.
And I'm Ben. Today we're getting to the heart of a question that has driven our struggles for justice from our liberation days to now. What should we do as Zimbabweans?
This isn't just a question, it's a call that echoes through our history. We're not here merely to grumble about the system, we're here to share real, brave ideas that can help us rebuild and shape a better tomorrow for our people.
When I look around at our reality today, I see a tapestry woven with the threads of injustice, betrayal, and fear, a pattern that has haunted us for decades. Our history here in Zimbabwe is marked by moments of deep pain, the arrests of journalists like Blessed, the relentless manhunt for voices of truth like Blessed Giza. Yet, even amid this darkness, I see a spark, a small, defiant light that tells us together we hold the power to change everything.
Is this the Zimbabwe they fought for? We often feel isolated, like we are standing alone against the tide of oppression. But if you look back at our history, you'll see that power is never a gift handed down by rulers. It's something we must seize with our own hands. The oppressive systems we live under are built on pillars. They thrive on fake legitimacy, on obedient enforcers, on a labyrinth of bureaucracy, on a culture of fear, and on controlling our resources. When those pillars start to crack, change becomes not just possible, but inevitable.
Exactly. Every regime that has held us in chains has depended on us to feed its strength, our silence, our compliance, our very participation. The moment we begin to withdraw that support, even in small, deliberate ways, the whole structure starts to crumble. Imagine the power in refusing to endorse the lies they spread, in choosing to hold our heads high despite the hardships. That small act of rebellion, when multiplied across families, communities, and the diaspora, can shake the foundation of any oppressive system.
And that is the truth we must embrace. We are not powerless victims. We are the heart and soul of Zimbabwe. Our collective strength is our greatest weapon. Every time we boycott a corrupt business, every time we share the unvarnished truth, we chip away at the very foundation that the oppressors have built their power upon. It is in our unity, our courage, and our refusal to accept injustice that we find the pathway to reclaiming our future.
So, my fellow Zimbabweans, let us remember that our history is not just a record of suffering, it's also a record of resistance. Every revolution, from the liberation struggles to the quiet acts of defiance in our daily lives, has shown that when the people stand together, even the mightiest of regimes will eventually fall. Today, as we begin this conversation, let's remind ourselves, the moment for action is now. Together, we can break the cycle of oppression and build a future that truly belongs to us.
Let's talk about economic resistance. Imagine if every dollar you spent was a vote for a more just society. When you deliberately refuse to spend money on businesses that fund corruption, you're effectively starving the oppressive system of its lifeblood. History shows us that economic boycotts can be incredibly powerful. For example, during apartheid in South Africa, international boycotts and divestment campaigns played a significant role in weakening the regime.
That concept is truly powerful. But it goes beyond simple boycotts. It's also about constructing an alternative economic framework that benefits us, the people, instead of enriching corrupt elites. Think about our thriving small businesses, local artisans, and the informal trade networks that already exist throughout Zimbabwe. By actively supporting these community-driven enterprises, we create a parallel economy that bypasses state-controlled institutions. The World Bank highlights how remittances and grassroots economic models can empower nations and foster sustainable development.
Exactly. The message is simple yet revolutionary. By withdrawing our financial support from corrupt systems and channeling our resources into our own communities, we directly challenge the foundations of an oppressive regime. It starts with a single act of defiance, a choice to spend consciously, and grows into a movement that can reshape our nation's future.
So every time you make a purchase, remember, your money is not just currency, it's a vote for the kind of society you want to build. Together, by making these choices, we create an unstoppable force for change. Let's harness this power support our local businesses, embrace alternative economic models, and invest in community initiatives that truly serve the people. In our struggle for justice, every dollar counts. Switching gears, let's talk about the battle for truth in our digital age. Every smartphone in our hands is more than just a device. It's a powerful tool for citizen journalism. With it, we can capture every injustice and every act of corruption as it happens. We no longer have to wait for state-controlled media to report our reality. We can document it ourselves.
Exactly, Ben. When traditional media is compromised or silenced, we step in. We become our own reporters, recording events as they unfold, sharing footage and eyewitness accounts on platforms like WhatsApp, Twitter, and YouTube. These actions transform our smartphones into instruments of change. And with technologies like VPNs and encrypted messaging apps, we can bypass state censorship, ensuring our voices reach beyond the walls of oppression. Organizations like Reporters Without Borders and the Committee to Protect Journalists continually remind us how vital these tools are for preserving our freedom of expression.
It's a revolution of information, David. Underground newsletters, community radio stations, and even simple word-of-mouth communications in our rural communities play a critical role in breaking through layers of propaganda. When truth circulates freely, it undercuts the lies that oppressive regimes depend on. UNESCO, for instance, emphasizes that information is power, stressing that a free flow of accurate information is essential for a functioning democratic society.
This struggle is about reclaiming our narrative. The government may try to silence us with censorship and intimidation, but history proves that the truth, once unleashed, cannot be contained. Every video shared, every article written, and every independent report distributed chips away at the regime's fabric of lies. Amnesty International has documented countless cases where digital activism has exposed human rights abuses, proving time and again that truth is our strongest weapon.
When we harness the power of modern media, we level the playing field. We take control of the narrative by documenting our reality and sharing it widely. This isn't just about recording events, it's about challenging the official story and empowering our communities with the truth. As Zimbabweans, when we speak out, when we share our stories, we strip away the regime's ability to manipulate information.
And that's why, in our fight for justice, every piece of information we share is an act of defiance. The truth, once shared and heard, becomes unstoppable. It is our shield against oppression and the rallying cry for our collective freedom. Together, by embracing the power of citizen journalism and independent media, we can break through the silence and hold those in power accountable.
Our digital voices are a force to be reckoned with. In this battle, the truth is our greatest ally, unyielding, uncontainable, and ultimately transformative. Let's use every tool at our disposal to ensure that the truth rings out loud, inspiring change and reclaiming our future.
One of the most gripping aspects of resistance is the idea that we can paralyze an oppressive system without a single shot being fired. It starts with simple acts of non-cooperation, choosing not to participate in the very mechanisms that keep injustice alive.
Think about it. When government workers, students, and professionals decide to stop playing their part in the machine, the whole system grinds to a halt. Whether it's slowing down bureaucracy by intentionally delaying processes, organizing peaceful sit-ins, or staging silent strikes, these acts of civil resistance demonstrate that power isn't confined to the few at the top. It truly lies in our collective hands.
It's a powerful reminder that obedience is a choice. When enough people say no, when they collectively withdraw their cooperation, no system, no matter how oppressive, can continue to function. This form of resistance is as strategic as it is moral. It's about reclaiming the agency that has been systematically stripped away, and it's about making the cost of repression far too high for those in power to bear.
This is where the spirit of past movements comes alive. Take, for instance, the silent strikes in Chile during the Pinochet era. Workers and public servants deliberately reduced their productivity, sending a clear message that their labor was not for the benefit of an oppressive regime. You can read more about how these tactics played a role in destabilizing the dictatorship in this BBC article on Chilean protests. Similarly, in South Africa, student-led protests and university sit-ins during the Soweto uprising in 1976 catalyzed a broader movement that challenged apartheid policies.
Every time people choose not to comply with silence, with deliberate inefficiency, or with peaceful protest, they chip away at the pillars that uphold an oppressive system. This method of resistance shows that even without weapons, collective action can be a formidable force. It reminds us that every small act of defiance contributes to a larger movement for justice and change.
Indeed, when civil resistance spreads across communities, it forces the state to reckon with a reality where its authority is questioned at every turn. Historical evidence from multiple counter-RIEs reinforces that a well-organized, non-violent movement can cause even the most entrenched regimes to crumble. As outlined in reports by organizations like Amnesty International, nonviolent resistance not only undermines the legitimacy of power, but also galvanizes communities around the cause of freedom.
The lesson is clear. Our refusal to participate in injustice is a potent weapon. By choosing non-cooperation and civil resistance, we are not only protecting our dignity, but also setting in motion the transformation of our society. It's a call for every Zimbabwean to rise, stand united, and say no to oppression without ever having to raise a weapon.
And that, my friends, is the heart of true resistance. It's the understanding that every act of non-compliance, every moment when we choose solidarity over silence, is a step toward reclaiming our future. Let's harness that power and together build a movement that shows the oppressors that our collective no is louder than any weapon they might wield.
Elections, as we know, are often rigged. But political power isn't confined to the ballot box alone. What if, instead of waiting for a flawed system to change, we built our own governance structures, ones that truly serve our communities? Imagine local councils, community cooperatives, and alternative public services that reflect our own needs and aspirations. This is what parallel governance is all about.
That's the beauty of parallel governance. Grassroots organizations have the potential to take on roles that the state has neglected. Think of how community-led groups in parts of Africa have organized neighborhood safety patrols, established local food banks, or even set up dispute resolution mechanisms when the official channels fail. For example, the World Bank emphasizes that effective local governance can be a catalyst for development and civic empowerment. When we build systems from the ground up, we directly challenge the legitimacy of those in power.
And on the global stage, the Zimbabwean diaspora can play a crucial role. Zimbabweans abroad have the potential to redirect remittances into community initiatives rather than letting funds funnel into state-controlled institutions. This redirection isn't just about financial strategy, it's a direct challenge to the financial networks that keep dictatorial systems afloat. The Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Act, for instance, was largely influenced by diaspora activism, pressing international governments to hold oppressive regimes accountable.
Exactly. Every channel of influence counts. When grassroots organizations establish local councils that manage services, from public safety and education to basic infrastructure, they are reclaiming the narrative. These local structures not only fill the gap left by a failing state, they also demonstrate that we don't have to wait for permission to govern ourselves. The African Union's emphasis on local governance as a foundation for sustainable development reminds us that self-determination is a universal right.
It's a radical act of self-determination. By building our own power structures, we show that we have the strength and ingenuity to create alternatives that reflect our values. This isn't about rejecting elections entirely. It's about understanding that while elections are one battlefield, the real change starts with community-based initiatives. When we set up local councils, support independent social services, and even mobilize political pressure internationally, we create a multi-layered strategy that can ultimately isolate and weaken oppressive regimes.
Absolutely. When our communities start governing themselves, when we stop depending on a broken system, the regime's control begins to erode. This idea is supported by research from institutions like the Brookings Institution, which highlights how local governance and community mobilization can lead to systemic change. Our actions, both at home and abroad, send a powerful message. Zimbabwe is not just defined by its corrupt leadership, it is defined by its resilient, resourceful people.
So, as Zimbabweans, we must harness the power of our diasporas and local communities alike. It's about pressing international institutions to impose sanctions on corrupt elites and demanding accountability while simultaneously building alternative systems right here on the ground. Our journey towards self-determination is a multifaceted struggle, but one thing is clear: we don't have to wait for change. We can create it ourselves.
Indeed, every step we take, every local council formed, every remittance redirected, every call for international accountability is a step toward reclaiming our future. This is a radical act of self-governance that embodies the true spirit of Zimbabwean resilience. It's a powerful reminder that we are not defined by the failures of our state. We are defined by our capacity to build, to innovate, and to govern ourselves.
No discussion of resistance is complete without addressing fear, an insidious tool wielded by oppressive regimes to keep us in line. But what if we could neutralize that fear with smart, organized self-defense strategies? Imagine transforming our vulnerability into strength by protecting our digital lives and our physical communities. This isn't about reckless confrontation. It's about strategic planning and collective resilience.
It all begins with digital and legal security. In today's surveillance society, protecting ourselves online is crucial. Using encrypted messaging apps like Signal, employing VPNs such as NordVPN or Proton VPN, and staying informed about our digital rights are vital steps. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF, offers comprehensive guides on digital security that every activist should read. EFF Digital Security. By securing our communications, we ensure that when we speak out, our messages and our identities remain protected.
And it's not just about individual safety. We must also build community defenses. Local watch groups and safe houses can provide physical security for those most at risk. In places where state repression is rampant, communities have historically organized to protect each other. By naming and shaming those who enforce oppressive policies, we not only hold them accountable, but also turn the tables, making them fear the consequences of their actions. Amnesty International has long emphasized the importance of protecting human rights defenders, and their guidelines on digital safety and community protection are an excellent resource. Amnesty International Digital Rights.
When the enforcers of oppression begin to fear exposure and accountability, the regime's grip starts to weaken. This isn't just theoretical. There are documented instances where digital security measures and community organization have turned the tide. For example, during the protests in Hong Kong, activists used encrypted apps and VPNs to coordinate their movements without interference, as detailed in reports by Human Rights Watch, HRW, on digital security. Moreover, community-based defense strategies in places like Colombia have shown that when local groups organize and document abuses, they create a powerful deterrent against state violence.
This is a profound reminder that courage can transform even the most oppressive environments. By adopting smart digital practices and building robust community networks, we not only shield ourselves, but also chip away at the foundation of fear that regimes depend on. Every step we take, whether it's a secure online conversation or a well-organized neighborhood patrol, is a declaration of our resilience and determination to reclaim our power.
Ultimately, turning fear on its head means making it a shared burden for the oppressors. When they see that our communities are protecting themselves and that our voices remain unbroken, the fear they once relied on begins to dissipate. Our security measures, both digital and physical, are our shields, and when wielded collectively, they are our swords. This is how we transform fear into a tool for change, ensuring that no matter how hard they try to silence us, our truth and our unity will prevail.
Finally, while our resistance is essential, so is the work of rebuilding. We need long-term strategies that ensure our future is defined by justice, education, and equality. The fight isn't only about toppling oppressive leaders, it's about reconstructing Zimbabwe into a nation that serves all its people, not just a privileged few.
That means rethinking every aspect of our society. We must reimagine systems for land and food security, ensuring that local agriculture and community-based food cooperatives flourish. When we invest in smallholder farmers and support community-driven agricultural reforms, we lay the groundwork for a self-sustaining economy. The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, highlights how community-led initiatives have transformed economies in other regions.
It's also about overhauling our education system. Our schools should nurture critical thinking and empower students to question, analyze, and challenge the status quo, not simply to memorize outdated narratives. UNESCO strongly advocates for decolonizing education as a means to empower future generations with the skills they need to drive change.
And let's not overlook the power of women and youth leadership. When our mothers, daughters, and young people take charge, they bring fresh perspectives and innovative ideas that challenge the old ways. UN Women has consistently shown that inclusive leadership not only improves governance, but also accelerates socioeconomic progress.
It's about breaking the cycle of dependency that fuels tyranny. Every time we rebuild, through supporting local agriculture, reforming education, or uplifting our youth and women, we chip away at the conditions that allow oppression to thrive. We're not merely fighting for today, we're constructing a legacy for future generations, a blueprint for a society that honors justice and shared prosperity.
That vision of empowerment is both inspiring and challenging. It calls on us to look inward, to question every aspect of the old order, and to invest wholeheartedly in a future that reflects our highest ideals. As Zimbabweans, we have the strength and ingenuity to create alternatives that are by the people, for the people. Together, we can build a future that belongs to all of us, a future where justice, education, and equality are the pillars of our society.
Let's commit to this journey. Every investment in our community, every support for local initiatives, and every push for reform is a step toward the Zimbabwe we deserve. The IS is our chance to break free from the cycles of oppression and build a legacy of empowerment that will shine for generations to come.
So, what does all of this mean for you listening today? It means that every choice you make, every act of resistance, no matter how small, adds up. When you refuse to be a passive consumer of an unjust system, you become a catalyst for change. Remember, even a single act of defiance can ignite a movement, as history has repeatedly shown us. The United Nations underscores the importance of individual action in creating social change in their reports on civic engagement.
Exactly. We must ask ourselves, will you continue to support the status quo, or will you join us in making the radical, necessary choices that lead to true freedom? Will you be the voice that challenges the narrative, the hands that build alternative futures, and the heart that refuses to be silenced? Organizations like Amnesty International remind us that human rights begin at the grassroots level. Every individual's action contributes to a collective power that can overturn oppressive regimes.
Let this be a turning point. Our conversation today is not just about ideas. It's a call for action. It's a reminder that our daily lives are the battleground where change is forged. History isn't written by those in power. It's written by the people who dare to act. Think of the movements in South Africa, Chile, and beyond, where ordinary people, united by a shared vision, dismantled systems built on oppression.
If you feel moved by what you've heard, please share this podcast. Engage with your neighbors, start conversations, and use your wallet, your voice, and your intellect as tools of resistance. Every time you support a local business over a corrupt entity, every time you speak truth to power, you contribute to dismantling the pillars of oppression. The International Monetary Fund has detailed studies on how economic choices can shift political power, reinforcing the idea that our collective financial decisions can reshape our nation.
Our future is not a gift, it's a promise that we must claim. It starts with you, with each deliberate act of courage and every decision to stand against injustice. Let us transform our voices into power and our choices into change. Together, we have the strength to build a world that truly belongs to all of us.
Remember, every moment counts. Share this message, rally your communities, and let us forge a legacy of resilience and freedom. The power to change our destiny is in our hands, and it begins today.